Ndinoda kuti nyika isiwe vanhu vangu inguva yedu hatingatadzi kubudirira Mwari ari parutivi pedu rambai muchirwa My hitters gon' die, don't die, the real hitters gon' shine and my people gon' rise, cause we're born to win, yeah. I ain't saying, but I'm saying
Loyalty's my favorite characteristic of God, but finding it in it is hard. It's like trying to find God. You're the only one in your camp with cheese. You pay for everything they eat. Man, that insecurity is deep. Now I ain't said no names. These are just theories. If you hear me, baby, it's home. You must admit it's kinda eerie, baby. Like them chemtrails in the sky. Hate to selling the slaves, kinda like the combines. We say everything in moderation, but don't do it in moderation. The lies of a gluttonous generation. 10-year-old girl.
Grand Rising, everybody. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I want to welcome you to another terrific Tuesday, of course. I'm really excited because we got some heavy hitters in the building, y'all. We got Office of Economic Development here. They're going to be telling us all about their new Storefront Repair Fund. I'm really excited because small businesses are going to have the opportunity to make sure their storefronts are on point. So we're first going to be talking to Director Markham McIntyre, and later we're going to be talking to the Small Business Advisor. Domonique Meeks is in the building. So of course I'm excited because we want to bring y'all this information, but it's also the top of the show right now, y'all. So it's a great time to tag and share this stream. Go ahead, no problem. Tag and share the stream with those you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on The Day with Trae. If you can't watch us, we got you covered. You can listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and The Day with Trae. Y'all will find me on Google, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, you name it. Any platform that's your favorite, pick it, search for us, you'll find us there. Shout out to everybody who is tagging and sharing the stream and those who are sharing the podcast. We appreciate you all. But we got some real information to dive into today. So I'm really excited. I get to welcome back Director Markham McIntyre. He's been here several times. What's up, Markham? How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see you, Trae.
Yeah, great to have you here again. I mean, we have been very specific about getting information out, and y'all have been like, look, Converge is a vehicle to do that. Tell us a bit about how it's been going for you since you started coming here and really bringing information about your programs through this particular medium.
Sure. Well, as you know, as we've talked about, the Office of Economic Development is really focused on wealth creation by breaking down barriers and opening up access, particularly for folks who have been historically locked out of wealth creating opportunities. But we can build all the snazzy programs we want, but if we're not communicating with folks and letting them know how to apply, what sort of help or assistance we have for helping them apply, then no one really benefits. So it's really important that we're out here telling people about the programs and then getting their feedback and understanding what they need so that when we're developing new programs, we're really meeting the needs as they appear.
You know, well, our job here is just to make sure that people are aware and informed. I mean, particularly for me, I'm really concerned with engagement, right? And how can I help to spark a greater sense of engagement? Are you guys feeling that over there at Office of Economic Development, OED, where it's like, okay, man, we're getting the word out in a massive way. We're feeling that level of engagement from folks that are applying or asking questions or connecting. Are you feeling that?
We are. Sometimes it's tough at the city or any government agency. Folks sometimes struggle to find you, to figure out how to interact. And so it's really on us to figure out new ways to engage and meet people where they are, which again is why we're excited to be on your show and making sure that we're spreading the word in different ways and reaching different communities that might not necessarily be familiar with working with the city or understanding what it is we have to offer.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I really appreciate about having you come on is I'm learning so much about these innovative ways that you guys are creating programs and funding programs in particular to really impact small businesses. You guys have been doing a lot of work. Just give us kind of an overall view, because you guys have been doing a lot of different things and we've been hearing about one program after another. But I know for you as a director, all of these programs have their kind of North Star, right? There's something that's really guiding you when you're talking about opening up opportunities and resources for those who historically haven't had them. How are all of these kind of new age programs that y'all are doing, how are they making that impact, you feel, in community?
Well, it's been interesting. We've had some new resources that we've been working with some of the federal recovery dollars. And then just in this last city budget cycle, we've been programming some new resources from the Jumpstart tax revenue. So it's been an exciting time for economic development where we've been able to push a little further, try some new things, be a little more experimental, and really make sure that we're listening to small businesses, understanding what they need, whether it's access to capital or help finding retail space, or help, as we're going to talk about later, with damage to their storefronts. We just want to make sure that we're offering a menu of options for folks so that it's not just one thing, but we're trying to provide things to get them on their feet, get them being successful, and then hopefully building wealth over generations.
Yeah, this is important. I think one of the greatest ways you can do that is kind of what you're talking about here, not just spreading the word, but having a real lens of how to be relational in community. And I think that's one of the toughest things in terms of state or any kind of government jobs or government departments. Like, it's about relationability, I'll say. Like, how relational can you be, and how can people feel like, you know what, I go there and I was connected to, I was cared for.
Yes.
In a sense. Tell us a bit about how you guys kind of utilize that as an approach to really making sure that people feel welcome to approach you all.
Well, it's something that we got to work on. So we're a very external facing department. And so we talk about wanting to be the best networked department in the city, which means that we've got connections throughout the city geography. So from south to north, east to west. And then we've got connections in a variety of different communities that may speak different languages or have different cultural competencies. But we want to make sure that we've got some sort of communication or relationship, as you mentioned, with folks so that it's not just a transactional thing. It's more, we're kind of understanding them and working with them on their journey as, again, they try to grow and thrive as a business.
Well, you mentioned something that I was going to get to with you, and because I think it's really important when we talk about the demographics of Seattle, they span the spectrum.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like, there's no one, monetary, economic piece that you can cling to say, okay, let's work with these folks this way. You guys got to have a diversified approach in order to do exactly what you're talking about, to meet people where they are. So that really is on you, director, too, to make sure you have a diversified staff. Tell us a bit about how you're taking that in internally to ensure that your staff is prepared to meet people where they are in all of these range of demographics that you're experiencing throughout the city.
Yeah, I mean, you're so right on, because diversity is our strength here in the city. Whether it's geographic diversity, racial or ethnic diversity, or industry diversity, like, all those things make us have a more resilient and successful economy overall. But on a staff level, we've really got to work at it, right? Again, it's about building relationships throughout the year, not just kind of when we need them. And then I'm excited about some things that we're doing to help our programming be more successful. So for instance, for this last budget cycle, we got a pot of money to help us with language access. Mm-hmm. Previously, we've kind of pulled that ad hoc from a bunch of different programs, but now we're actually going to have a central budget to work with so that we can try new things, build relationships, and make sure that we're reaching people in different languages so that they feel like they're part of the city and that we want them and we're welcoming them into the programs that we have to offer.
Yeah, I think accessibility is key when we talk
huge.
about diversity.
It's the game. I mean, again, we can build all the programs we want, but if they're not accessible and they're not reaching the people that are really going to benefit the most from them, then we've failed. So it's incumbent upon us to figure out how to create those points of access and then constantly refine it, because it's constantly changing.
Yeah. That's another thing too. I think for any state agency or city agency, how are you also being responsive to the changes? I mean, we have always talked about it here on my show, but also on Converge, is that, for many of us from the Central District, there's so much change with gentrification that we're finding when we're talking about, okay, we want to really, make sure Black communities are aware of certain things. We're having to really span the spectrum now, because there's not like a central location of where a lot of Black families are concentrated. And so when we think about the ways that we even have to disseminate our materials and our content, it has to be wide ranging. And I'm sure that's the same for you all. When you think about your role and some of the ways that you guys have been able to utilize, federal funding and ARPA funding, some of this is one-time funding, as we know, but tell us a bit about some of those highlights, some of the things that you're really excited you guys have been able to do as a part of city government.
I'm really excited about the commercial affordability programs that we have to offer, because, we talk a lot about in the city about the housing affordability crisis. There's also just a huge challenge with commercial affordability. And so we're really excited that we've got programs that help businesses get in the door, like with Seattle Restored, that gets folks into vacant storefronts. And then we've got our tenant improvement fund, which I know we came and talked to you about, which is helping people improve and expand their space. And then finally, we're going to be launching in the next year, which hopefully we'll come talk to you about, is our community business ownership fund, which is getting people to actually own their space. So having that kind of continuum of resources around commercial affordability, I think is really special. It's new stuff for the city. We're definitely pushing kind of what the city's done before and their tolerance around risk in that arena. But I think that's part of our role, is to, again, understand what businesses need and then try to push the city to make sure that we're helping meet them.
Well, when you talk about some of these things in terms of like the suite of programs you guys offer for funding, you guys really are setting a tone. I think that there's a lot of other cities that are kind of looking at Seattle to see how you guys manifest some of these ARPA funds and federal dollars that are coming in. Really, it's about like, oh man, COVID hit businesses and hit communities really hard. How are we, making sure that we're, putting resources where they need to be to make a real bounce back? But I also think too that, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, Seattle is one of those cities where it's like Seattle's the only named city Seattle in the country. So there's something really specific about what Seattle does that's not just being looked at throughout the state, but also throughout the country. And so setting some of these precedents is also major. But I think about the fact that we're talking about COVID bringing out these opportunities, yet we know these opportunities exist anyway. How are you guys really hoping to expand on what you guys have learned through some of these resources that have come in and how you guys have been able to create these innovative programs?
Mm-hmm. Well, I always believe that Seattle always has the right ingredients to be a leader, right? We've got the resources, we've got the brain power, we have the values. If you mix those together in the right way and get organized, like there's nothing we really can't do here in Seattle. So I'm very bullish just on the concept of us being a national leader. As well, I think it's important, just as we're networked within the Seattle community, we also need to be networked with some of those other cities, because to your point, a lot of them are going through similar challenges. As much as we want to be a leader, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to build everything from scratch. We can beg, borrow, steal ideas from those other cities and adapt them for our communities. And I think that's something that we really need to do a better job of. Plus, there's a good sense of kind of unity among different cities, whether you're advocating for certain federal dollars or other kind of resources, or just trying to put together programs. Going through it together can be a real benefit for the city of Seattle now and in the long term.
Yeah, well, I think you guys are doing a pretty good job. I mean, this is something where it's like, as long as these programs are really hitting the areas that need it, that's really the impact that you guys are looking to make. And like you said, you can have all the greatest programs in the world, but if people don't feel like they can engage with them, and then we're still having these growing disparities in terms of economic opportunities, particularly when it comes to small businesses, that's really key. So I'm excited after this break, I get to talk to Domonique a bit about the Storefront Repair Fund, right, for small businesses. Just give us a little bit of a general overview, and then I'll dive into the details with him.
Sure. Well, we heard strongly from small businesses and from a number of our neighborhood business districts, just the frustration they were having with storefronts and windows being broken. And if we're talking about trying to build wealth, it's really hard to build business wealth when your door's busted in or your window's broken out, especially because that costs money just to get back to normal. And so we heard a big kind of groundswell for the city to do something here. And so we put together the Storefront Repair Fund. We had learned a lot in our work with allocating federal dollars previously. So we're able to take a chunk of those and put it towards the Storefront Repair Fund. Domonique, who you're going to speak to in a moment, is our absolute expert. He ran our small business stabilization fund. And so he took a lot of the lessons learned there and applied it to this new program. And it's us as the city basically trying to bring businesses back to baseline. He'll give you the particulars, but so far we've seen an enormous cry for demand in the terms of the number of applications coming in. And we think it's just going to help businesses get back to baseline. Because one of the things we heard acutely beyond just the out-of-pocket cost to repair a window is if they make an insurance claim and then their insurance cost goes up, that's devastating in the long run. So it's really putting our small and Main Street businesses in a pickle right when they're trying to come out of the pandemic. And so we felt this was a great chance for us to kind of step in an immediate sense and try to provide some relief and show that the city cares about those Main Street businesses and the value that they have in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Director. Thank you so much for being here and sharing some real insight on all the steps that Office of Economic Development, OED, is making over there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Trae.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, I'm excited because after this short break, Domonique Meeks is up. He is the Small Business Advisor for Office of Economic Development. He is going to be telling us all about the Storefront Repair Fund. You guys stay tuned after this short break. You're watching The Day with Trae.
A world of wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCall Hall. Tickets start at $27. Visit pnb.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday, and I'm excited because Director Markham really gave us a lot to work with in terms of what OED is doing and how intentional they're being. Now I get to dive into some of those great details with Domonique Meeks, the Small Business Advisor for Office of Economic Development. Welcome, Domonique.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Okay. Well, you have a really important role here. Tell us, before you get into the Storefront Repair Fund, tell us a bit about you and what got you to Office of Economic Development.
Yeah, that's a great question. So before the Office of Economic Development, was an entrepreneur and ran a podcast to do similar to what y'all are doing here. How do we get the word out about what's going on in the city? Specifically focus on small business entrepreneurs. And that landed me in direct connection with the Office of Economic Development as a small business advocate. And so there are about 5 or 6 of us on the team in the Office of Economic Development. And we do everything from assisting businesses, from folks that just have an idea and that are already sort of doing the business on the ground without the license and wanting to get it structured, to legacy businesses that have been around for quite some time that are thinking about, how do I scale my business, or how do I pass this business down to my loved ones to continue the business as it goes on.
Yeah, I mean, small business is really it's key. We think about generational wealth. We think about opportunities, and particularly around ownership, which is so huge. And I know you know that as an entrepreneur yourself. But so you bring a lot of lived experience to the role. What are some of the things that you are really excited for in your role now that you come from that other side, and now you're helping those who are just like you?
Yeah, I'm excited to kind of dig deep into where are we now, right? In 2022, I don't want to say post-COVID, but post shutdowns and things of that nature. How do businesses innovate and pivot based on what was learned? We've seen our everyday lives change, our habits change, and how do we make sure that businesses are online? How do we make sure that businesses are tapped in with what's going on in technology, but also that businesses have the resources and are connected to city opportunities, whether library opportunities and other technical assistance that you can get for free around this wonderful city before they start to come out of pocket to pay consultants and other folks. So.
Yeah, this is important because I think that there's a lot of different resources folks just don't know about, right?
Absolutely.
And it comes down to not just awareness and marketing and things like that, but it's about like how accessible is this information to those who really need it. So I know that you're probably really on top of that.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about your approach to this work, because again, as I was talking with director Markham McIntyre, I mean, you guys have to be really intentional to be like, look, no, as he said, you guys are external facing.
Yeah.
So you got to have a real plan in place in order to do that work. Tell us a bit about how you fit into that.
Yeah. So running the Small Business Stabilization Fund, the city of Seattle was one of the first cities to really do a recovery fund grant. And so our application launched March 12th of 2020. And if we take ourselves back to that time, that's about the time that the state started to roll out shutdowns and things of that nature. And the reason why I bring that up is because it allowed us an opportunity to create a directory of small businesses here in our city, of small businesses that needed assistance. And so we use that same directory now to do our outreach to small businesses with phone numbers, through email, making sure that businesses are in the know and making sure that businesses are in the know before we launch an application, right? Not just when hey, you have 5 days left to apply to this thing and it's going to close, but also to make sure that we're there to really walk folks through and hold their hands through. As you can imagine, not everybody is cell phone savvy. Not everybody is technology savvy. And so we really learned some lessons through that program that we take into all of our programs, so that a business can just pick up a phone and someone at OED is going to answer the phone. They're going to log on to the website. They're going to walk through the application for folks that are having trouble with technology, answer all the questions that folks have. And if it's a question worth putting in our FAQ, we make sure that those go on our FAQ so that when others hop online to find it, they can find easy answers. And I think the other piece of it is, as Markham mentioned earlier, was the language access piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's one thing to say that we're available to everyone in the city, but it's another thing to really start to work with organizations like Lake City Collective to make sure that when I call OED in language, there's someone else that can answer back in language. There's someone else that can help me fill out the application in language and answer all the questions and jump through any hoops that need to be jumped through. And so we've really been adamant about making sure that exists throughout all of our programs that we put out.
It's so important, honestly, Domonique, because, when we talk about being open to diversity, it means you have to be intentional about how you receive diversity. And I really appreciate that you guys are doing some, real groundwork there. One of the things that kind of goes on in a lot of Black communities, they're like, okay, yeah, these funds come out, but they don't hit our communities. And so there's this level of imbalance here when we talk about resource allocation. How are you guys dealing with that? Because we know it's a real thing. We've seen the data, we've seen the numbers. So it's not just what people are saying or, oh, I just feel a certain way. It's actually showcased in actual data. How are you guys dealing with some of those disparities?
I love those questions because one, we make it a point to prioritize businesses from specific communities, whether we're talking about women-owned businesses, BIPOC businesses. The other that comes back is data, right? How do we as a city and as a city entity, how are we transparent about the data that we have at our disposal? And so I know through the Small Business Stabilization Fund, you can look on our website at a dashboard that exists that has all of the data from the folks that were chosen from the grant, what the demographic breakdown is. And the same will be true about this program as well. And so I think that transparency is necessary, not just for our office, but for all government offices to really get to that point. But more than that, I think that it's important that we do outreach. And I know that every business, if you ask 100 businesses if they need access to capital, 100 businesses are going to tell you, yes, I need access to capital. As we know, capital isn't always flying around. And so I do take it upon myself as a small business advocate to make sure that we're telling businesses about the other things that can impact their businesses. Programs like our digital sales access program that'll give a business a free point of sale system. Programs like the Urban League's youth website development program that'll connect a business with a website. In thinking about how businesses are getting online and getting connected to their customer base, especially from the sense of we've seen the demographics of Seattle change, and we've seen our customer bases go. All businesses have seen their customer base go all over the region, and so it's very important that we as city government are in tune and staying connected with small businesses, but also that we iterate to small businesses that they have to also stay connected with their customers, especially as they diversify from a geography perspective.
Yeah, this is really important, and I love that you guys are intentional about thinking about this and really creating strategies and approaches to address it, because if you don't do that, then all of the status quos will continue. So that's really great. Well, this is exciting because now you guys have the Storefront Repair Fund. Again, we got some generalistics here from the director, but tell us a bit about this fund in particular.
Yeah, I first want to say the application is open, and it will be open until we run out of funds. There's about $1.98 million to be granted out. It's a $2,000 grant. The application can be found on our website. We have a really cool business locator tool up in the top left corner where you can search your UBI or your business name, and it'll pre-fill some of the information for you. And some of that information includes your city business license, your UBI number, because not everybody has that off the top of their head. It's a 9-digit number. And so it's a grant similar to the Small Business Stabilization Fund, where there's $2,000. It's for small businesses with 50 employees or less. The application opened on October 18th, and we've seen to date, I checked this morning, there's about 425 applicants in there. And so there's still room to apply. As we hope businesses don't have to apply, because we're hoping that businesses don't have broken windows and broken storefronts. But if you do, we do encourage you to apply. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
So this fund actually will cover costs of repair to the damage of a brick and mortar location. And I want to make sure that we kind of understand some of the specifics around, okay, $2,000 can go a long way for some businesses, and maybe it's just a chip of the issue for other businesses. But tell us a bit about some of the ways that a business can utilize these funds.
Yeah. So the Storefront Repair Program is for any business that had storefront damage, thinking broken windows, broken door frames, from January 1st, 2021 to present. And so it does have to be sort of in that kind of realm, and obviously present being whatever day they decide to apply, if something happens today, tomorrow, during the holidays. And so it's a $2,000 grant. They will apply. We go through the application process. We vet the business, make sure that businesses have their B&O taxes paid, make sure that there's a city license. We go through and validate all of those things, and we'll give a business a call if for some reason those things aren't in compliance. We assist businesses in working with our city finance office to get those things in compliance, and really run them through the process of making sure that they get the $2,000 grant that will hopefully help them get back to normal. As we think about a broken window, can be anywhere from a couple of $100s to, like you said, a couple of thousands of dollars. And so we really hope that this will soften the blow. The other piece that's important is thinking about if you're a small business with 5 employees, if someone comes and your window is broken and you get there in the morning, you've not only have to deal with getting this window repaired, but you're also dealing with the money that you could potentially be losing by having to focus on this window versus focusing on your customer. So
yeah. So there's a lot of I think the cost can roll over, to be honest. It's a bit of a domino effect. If you come to the business and you're opening up and your door is smashed in, right? what then? Because somebody could come in, mess with your, business furniture, whatever it is. If it's a restaurant, you got tables and chairs, maybe they're slashing things. That's why I was asking, because I think, when we think about a broken window or a broken door, oftentimes it means other things have been tampered with in the business. And so it's great to know that you guys are also thinking about that, it sounds like, and that you're saying, there's a impounding cost oftentimes when it comes down to repairing some of these things with your storefront. Now, one of my questions is this, when the $2,000 isn't enough, how do you guys help those businesses find other resources? Are there ways for them to still be plugged in with OED, but gain some more insight into like, okay, this 2,000 was great and it helped me a little, but there's more things I got to pay for to get my business back to baseline. How are you guys kind of dealing with that gap?
Yeah, our communications team does a wonderful job of sending out a monthly newsletter with all of the resources that not only exist in our office, but exist in the region from different technical assistance partners. And that's everything from grants to other technical assistance programs. We have a plethora of just different technical assistance partners throughout the city. I don't know how much time you have. I could name a bunch of them, but in fear of forgetting any of them, they are definitely located on OED's website, whether we're talking about businesses like that will go through small business technical assistance programs like your ventures programs, your El Centro de la Razas, really just to connect folks to get them back to zero, but then, which is this program specifically, but then how do we continue to kind of move you forward either through understanding finances, delivering different grant programs, or providing technical assistance that'll give your business the boost that folks are looking for.
Well, this is exciting. I mean, I think it's so necessary. If you travel anywhere throughout the city, you see a lot of this. And to be honest, if I don't talk about some of the root causes of why people are busting down windows and doors, I would be remiss myself. So there's also this level of like, OED can't do all of that because there's so much more that has to happen in terms of balancing the scales of resource allocation. But I love that you guys are doing what you can for small businesses to keep them afloat, to keep them going. Make sure folks know how to get to that website. Absolutely. You can look right there and make sure they know how to apply for this amazing grant.
Yeah, so it's on the Office of Economic Development's website under small business resources. The last thing that I also know is you have to have 2 out of 3. That's a photo of the damage, an incident report, or a receipt for the actual incident that happened. And so it's 2 out of 3. We'll ask you for that once you are called after your application and it gets to processing. But please reach out if you have any questions. If you're listening and you know that your neighbor has a broken window, please let your neighbor know about this program. That's the best way to get it is word of mouth. We can send all the emails we want. We can make all the phone calls we want. But we know that our communities are relational and it's important that we spread the word. And so thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to speak about this on the show.
Absolutely. And Domonique, thank you for the work you're doing and for bringing, your advocacy to OED. I think it's so important that the Office of Economic Development, which is so external facing, actually has people that are from these communities and that have lived experience as an entrepreneur to really help navigate some of those nuanced issues that entrepreneurs face that may be overlooked by a major office. It's so important to have folks like you in those seats so that also too people can feel that relational approach that you can bring to it because you are them, right? Absolutely. And so there's something so specific about having people like yourself really represent what OED is doing and doing it in such a great way. Thank you so much for being with me today.
I appreciate you and thank you for everything that you do as well, Trae.
Absolutely. Wow, great conversation with Office of Economic Development today. Of course, I get to wrap it all up right after this short break, y'all. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Join us this holiday season at the Fifth Avenue Theater and feel the power of love overflowing with The Wiz. Filled with soaring soul and R&B songs, it's an effervescent explosion of music, dance, and magic your whole family will love. Ease on down the yellow brick road with Dorothy as she learns home isn't really where you live, it's who you love. The Wiz at the Fifth Avenue Theater, November 19th through December 23rd. Tickets at fifthavenue.org.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. What a great show today. I want to, of course, thank my guest, Markham McIntyre, director over at OED, Office of Economic Development, and Domonique Meeks, the small business advisor for OED. I mean, both of them are really sharing how the Office of Economic Development is creating programs and funding sources for small businesses to continue to thrive, to begin, to stay in place with their storefront. This right here was a great indicator of some of the ways that these funds can be used in an innovative way to ensure that we are keeping our establishment of small business within the city of Seattle. I always love talking about these things because I appreciate when we as a city are doing something that can really be inspiring to the rest of the state and the nation with how these funds are being utilized and how they're impacting the stability and sustainability of businesses here. So kudos to both of them for joining me. I hope you guys really found some insight in this. If you know of a small business who has had, unfortunately, a busted window, a door front, anything like that, where they need to repair something quickly, please make sure they know about this Storefront Business Repair Fund. Again, and they said it here today, almost $2 million has gone into this fund to provide $2,000 of grant funding to all small businesses who are in need of it. Already they have 400 applications, but they're keeping it open until the funds run out. Now, when do we hear of that? Normally there's always a deadline, but they are very specific about making sure all these funds are utilized for this purpose. And of course, I was inspired. I'm inspired by both of them giving their all to the Office of Economic Development and showcasing to community how their intentionality with building relationships with business owners and continuing those relationships through newsletters and other ways to engage is really key. They both kind of shared something that's going to be sticking with me because I think it's important that we all find the ways to see ourselves as a part of the solution. So of course, I want y'all to do that. They definitely are doing that. Be inspired, y'all, to do it yourselves. And for me, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.